Good afternoon. You're watching live from Paris here on France 24. It's 2 p.m. in the French capital, and here are our headlines. Venezuela's power struggle spills into the streets. Self-proclaimed President Juan Guaido leads the calls for mass protests, as Nicolas Maduro says he is willing to talk. Asia Bibi is expected to leave Pakistan after an Islamist petition to have her executed is quashed by the Supreme Court. Canada, one country likely to consider her asylum application. And Carlos Ghosn speaks from jail. The disgraced Nissan boss blames internal company plots for his arrest on multiple fraud charges. First, Venezuela is gearing up for mass protests today against the president, Nicolas Maduro. He's been in a standoff for over a week now with the National Assembly chief, Juan Guaido, who declared himself the president and called for new elections. Well, Maduro has responded by slapping a travel ban on Guaido and freezing his bank accounts. The government has long rejected calls to negotiate with the opposition, but in an interview on a Russian TV station today, Maduro now says he is willing to talk. Alison Sargent has the story.
He's willing to talk, not to step down. Speaking to a Russian news agency, Venezuelan President Nicolás Maduro said that he's prepared to hold negotiations with the opposition.
It would be very good to conduct parliamentary elections at an earlier stage. It would be a good form of political discussion. Presidential elections in Venezuela have taken place, and if imperialists want new elections, let them wait until 2025.
In the interview, Maduro also accused U.S. President Donald Trump of ordering the Colombian government to assassinate him. The U.S. has been a key backer of parliamentary President Juan Guaido, who declared himself Venezuela's interim president last week. Guaido maintains that the Constitution allows him to assume power, since the opposition considers Maduro's second mandate illegitimate. Speaking to France 24, he said his duty was to call for free and fair elections.
We're dealing with a dictatorship here that is malicious and lacks all scruples. But we are a sovereign state, and I, as acting president of the Republic of Venezuela, will use all means at my disposal to put an end to this, to ensure a transition government and hold free elections.
On Tuesday, Venezuela's Supreme Court announced a series of so-called precautionary measures, preventing Guaido from fleeing the country or moving assets. Venezuela's chief prosecutor gave the order, blaming Guaido for the country's unrest and for encouraging foreign intervention.
Well, as Venezuela's economy has buckled in the past year, its diaspora has skyrocketed. Over 2.3 million Venezuelans are currently abroad. They're watching the situation at home closely, and some see the newly energized opposition under Guaido as a sign they may be able to return to the country soon. As Erin Aginki now reports.
Leonel Núñez left Venezuela for Mexico a year ago. The transition wasn't easy. He went from being a political consultant to cleaning bathrooms, though he now runs a Venezuelan restaurant. With a diabetic brother dependent on insulin, he says leaving Venezuela had become a question of life or death. But after Venezuelan opposition leader Juan Guaido declared himself interim president, Núñez says he's optimistic he may soon be able to return home.
For me, there aren't two presidents. For me, there's only one, and it's Guaido. So I'm here, hopeful, the same hope all Venezuelans share, which is to pack the suitcases we arrived here with, full of dreams, and take them back to Venezuela to continue dreaming.
Nicolas Maduro's rule in Venezuela has sent the number of Venezuelan emigres skyrocketing. Since 2015, more than 3 million people have fled rising economic and political strife in the country, accounting to more than 7% of the population. But many emigres now say Guaido's support from abroad makes them particularly optimistic he'll be able to bring real change.
He gave me hope, total hope. I had goosebumps. I wanted to cry because for the first time you see that there is a movement that's not only in Venezuela. It's not only the Venezuelans who left. We're all over the world. We're scattered around the world and many countries and governments are supporting us, something that has not happened before.
On Saturday, Spain, France, and Germany gave Nicolas Maduro a final ultimatum. He'll have 8 days to hold free and fair elections. Otherwise, the 3 EU countries will officially recognize Juan Guaido as interim president.
Well, meanwhile, then, Juan Guaido has given a rare interview to our sister television station, France 24 Spanish. There, he pitched himself as a leader that Venezuela needed to pull itself out of a dire economic situation. So dire, he said, that children were dying in the streets. Let's take a listen then to a little of what he had to say.
We have children dying in the street where hospitals have no electricity because the power plant is down. So all in all, these people, they need me. And there are a number of things that have to be done. First of all, it is a civil duty. It is a civic duty. We can talk about the civil service. We have to protect the constitution. We are facing a dictatorship that arrested people, persecuted people, killed people. And we have to ensure a democracy.
You can catch then that full interview with Juan Guaido at 16:45 today here on France 24. Let's bring you some other world news then on the programme. And a Christian woman who spent years on death row in Pakistan is expected to leave the country within a week, that after she was acquitted on blasphemy charges. The Supreme Court dismissed a petition by Pakistani Islamists who'd called for Asia Bibi to be executed. Well, she's currently being held under tight security in an undisclosed location, and her family say her life is at risk in Pakistan and she is now likely to seek asylum abroad. Well, to get the latest then, let's cross live to Islamabad on the programme and bring in our reporter Shazia Wahla, who joins me now. First of all, what information do we have about when Asia Bibi will try to leave and perhaps where it is she might go?
Well, what we know so far is from the activists that have helped her throughout this case and her lawyers. There has been no official statement, or there has been no statement from her family as well. According to the activist and her lawyer, they are saying that the Canadian government has offered her asylum and Asia Bibi has accepted the asylum, and most probably she'll be leaving for Canada within this week. According to her lawyer, he has said that Asia's family, mainly 2 of her daughters, have already flown to Canada, and within a week Asia will also be reunited with them. Currently, if you talk about the current where Asia is currently, she is being kept in a safe house in Islamabad. According to her lawyer, the lawyer has said that the safe house is a neat and clean safe house, and it is being secured by the civilian security, and she cannot be allowed to go free in the country because of security threats.
Now, her acquittal yesterday by the Supreme Court was upheld on those blasphemy charges. Tell us more about what it was the Supreme Court said and why that's angered so many Islamists where you are.
The Supreme Court yesterday said that the prosecution or the hardline Islamists were not able to even point out a single mistake in the verdict that was given by the Supreme Court last October, and they dismissed the petition, the appeal petition, to stop Asia Bibi from going out of Pakistan. Well, there has been a large anger after yesterday's verdict. We have seen it on social media that hardliners have criticized the Supreme Court's verdict, but this time they have not been able to come out on the streets and demonstrate this anger. The reason being, since the last protests in October, when Asia Bibi was acquitted, there has been a large crackdown against the Islamic hardline groups which were responsible for those protests. Hundreds of members of these hardline groups have been arrested, and their top leadership has been booked for spreading violence and for spreading hate speech. So their street power has largely reduced in the past couple of months. But that still doesn't mean that Pakistan is a safe country for Asia, or even for the lawyers who have defended Asia, or for the judges who have acquitted her. Because in the past we have seen that judges and lawyers who have defended people accused of blasphemy have been killed in Pakistan. So although the threats from hardened Islamist groups have reduced, but they still exist.
All right, Shahsia Bwahla reporting for us there from Islamabad. Thank you very much for your time on the programme. Let's bring you the latest now then on the complex Brexit process. And a majority of British lawmakers have now voted to endorse Theresa May's deal if she can renegotiate the Irish backstop. So the Prime Minister is expected to head back to Brussels within the next couple of days to try to do just that. But before she does so, she found some time to criticise the opposition leader, Jeremy Corbyn. Let's take a listen to what she had to say.
He stands up regularly and says he doesn't want no deal. I'm working to ensure we get a deal. He has opposed every move by this government to get a deal. He's the one who's risking no deal.
Jeremy Corbyn! Mr. Speaker, I would be grateful if the Prime Minister would actually acknowledge that the House has voted to take no deal off the table.
Getting a new deal, though, for Theresa May is likely to be a hard sell. The European Union have already said the Irish backstop, and indeed the whole withdrawal agreement is already locked down. Brian Quinn explains.
The ayes to the right.
After a day of contentious debate, UK lawmakers passed two amendments. One, a bid to save Theresa May's Brexit agreement, and one that assumes it can't be saved. Amendment N seeks unspecified alternatives to replace the controversial Irish backstop provision in the withdrawal agreement May has already negotiated with Brussels, an agreement Parliament overwhelmingly rejected in mid-January. Hardline Brexiters fear the backstop could threaten the structural integrity of the UK and permanently bind it to the EU.
This amendment will give the mandate I need to negotiate with Brussels, an arrangement that commands a majority in this House. One that ensures we leave with a deal and addresses the House's concerns while guaranteeing no return to the hard border between Northern Ireland and Ireland.
But Brussels quickly threw cold water on those plans, with European Commission President Donald Tusk calling the existing withdrawal agreement the best and only way to ensure an orderly withdrawal of the UK from the EU, with the backstop a part of an agreement that is not open for renegotiation. The other amendment passed, a non-binding resolution calling for the government to avoid crashing out of the EU without an agreement in place. Opposition Labour Party leader Jeremy Corbyn had previously refused to meet with May until she personally ruled out a no-deal Brexit.
We are prepared to meet her, to put forward the points of view from the Labour Party of the kind of agreement we want with the European Union to protect jobs, to protect living standards and to protect rights and conditions in this country.
But with Brexit Day, March 29th, fast approaching, Parliament's only concrete suggestion for avoiding a no-deal scenario is to ask the EU for what it has already refused: further negotiation.
Bring you some other world news then on the programme. And after 2 weeks at sea, a rescue ship holding 47 asylum seekers and migrants will now be allowed to dock in Italy. The Prime Minister, Giuseppe Conte, said a deal had been reached to split the arrivals between Italy and 6 other European companies. This after the German NGO Sea-Watch filed a case against the Italian government at the European Court of Human Rights on Friday. That then after Rome refused to allow the ship to dock. Now, those on board include 8 miners, and they are now all expected to be able to disembark within the coming hours today. Next, the disgraced former boss of Nissan, Carlos Ghosn, has given his first interview since he was arrested in November. He's awaiting trial on multiple fraud counts in Japan, but he denied any wrongdoing and instead blamed his arrest on a plot by other executives at Nissan. Solange Mougin has the story.
Carlos Ghosn says he has no doubt that he's behind bars because of a, quote, plot and treason by Nissan executives. For the first time since being detained November 19th, the auto tycoon has spoken to the press. For roughly 20 minutes from his detention center, he sat down with journalists from the Japanese paper Nikkei. In an exclusive interview on both its Japanese and English language platforms, Ghosn acknowledged a plan had been in the works to integrate Renault, Nissan, and Mitsubishi under one holding company, but that such a step didn't please some Nissan executives, leading them to cooperate with Tokyo prosecutors. Ghosn said the plans had also been discussed with Nissan's president, Hirota Saikawa. The Franco-Brazilian Lebanese auto tycoon also fought back against accusations that during his 19 years at the helm of Nissan, he acted like a dictator. He said, quote, "People translated strong leadership to dictator, to distort reality for the purpose of getting rid of me." Following the interview, Nissan's spokesman refuted the claims of a coup, stating that Nissan's president had already categorically refuted that notion. Of his detention, Ghosn said there were ups and downs, and he reiterated that he's innocent, that financial transactions were signed off within Nissan. As he did in court, he also said he's not a flight risk, vowing he would defend himself. No longer chairman of the alliance he spearheaded and created, Ghosn refused to speculate about the future of that alliance as he awaits his trial.
Tens of millions of people across North America are bracing for what could be the coldest air there in a generation. A polar vortex is sweeping from the Arctic, and temperatures in some areas have already dropped as low as minus 46 degrees Celsius. France 24's Cole Stangler has the latest on the extreme weather in Toronto.
Canada's largest city is recovering from a record-setting snowstorm. More than 26 centimeters of snow in Toronto, the most in a single day in more than 50 years.
This is Canada. We have winter. We get snowstorms. I mean, I'm happy that we've got weather. It's the one thing about being Canadian is that we know how to deal with weather. We go out, shovel snow, we go skating, we go skiing, we enjoy the outdoors. I'm not upset by it, but it's a lot of shoveling.
It's not just the snow. Large swaths of the country are reeling from frigid weather. Even for Canada, the government has issued rare extreme cold warnings from Manitoba in the west all the way to the Atlantic coast. Temperatures that carry the risk of frostbite within minutes of exposure. It's all due to a stream of cold air from the Arctic, known as the polar vortex. That same blast of air is also descending on the United States this week, leaving fields and prairies looking like the North Pole.
Now, next Monday is the beginning of the Year of the Pig in the Chinese calendar, and millions of Chinese people are already on the move, heading home to spend the new year with their families. The holiday is the world's largest annual migration of people, with over 400 million trips planned as people leave major cities in China and head to their hometowns, or indeed rural China, for a break.